Hello and welcome back to the Hive School. If you're new here, my name is Rich Porter and I'm making these videos to help you one-up your workflow. It's been a little while since we put out a video. We actually didn't mean to take a break, but there's only so much time in the week and we've had some intensive projects to deliver to keep the studio lights on. Anyway, we're back and we're ready to dive into a new video. Today we're revisiting one of our most popular videos, how to set a Bitfocus Companion to work with Disguise. A lot has changed since we covered this. Companion itself has had a serious overhaul, and the Disguise OSC module now has way more functionality than it used to. I've got to say a big shout out to my friend Dan Hall, who did a lot of the work improving it. Now, before we jump in, I want to mention that we're specifically covering the Disguise OSC connection today, because most of the time when I reach for Companion using Disguise, that's what I'm using. When you search for Disguise in Companion, you'll see there are actually several different connection types available now, including the new Live Update plugin. If there's enough interest, we can definitely do videos covering those other connection methods, so let us know in the comments below if that's something you'd like to see. Alright, let's get into it. We need to start up by setting an OSC device in Disguise. This is going to manage the connection between Disguise and Companion. In your Disguise project, right-click on the Devices menu and then hit the plus button to add a new device. Disguise packages a default OSC device called OSC1, and we're going to use that. Left-click to add it to your project. The main things to note here are the send and receive ports. The default settings in both Disguise and Companion are set up to connect right away without any changes. It's definitely convenient. However, if you need multiple OSC devices in your Disguise project, you'll need to modify these ports because you can't reuse them. You'll notice that the OSC device has a red error message at the top, and this will go away when you add a send IP address. In a lot of circumstances, I don't actually use the data that comes back from Disguise, but dropping in an IP will make it happy, which is good for our collective OCD. We are going to demonstrate some of the things that can be done with return data today, so we'll need to put in a valid IP. Since we're running Companion and Disguise on the same machine for this demo, 127.0.0.1, and that's a loopback address, is definitely adequate. This is the same address we'll put into Companion when we set that up. In production, you'll typically have Companion running on a separate machine from your Disguise server. In that case, you'll put in the actual IP of your Companion machine here instead. So now let's flip over to Companion and set up the connection from this side. In Companion, we'll need to add a new connection, search for Disguise, and you'll see the different connection types I mentioned earlier. We want Disguise OSC. Setting up the connection is pretty simple. The default ports are correct as long as you've been using the default Disguise ports. But if you need some custom ports because you're using more than one OSC device, then this is where you would configure it. You need to input the IP address of the Disguise machine. Again, for this demo, we're using a loopback address, but in normal production use, you'd put in the actual IP address of your Disguise server. Okay, back in Disguise. So setting up a device is only half of the work needed to make OSC function correctly. The device manages the connection to Companion, but you will need to tell Disguise what to do with those OSC messages. And the way we do that is via transport. Right-click on Transport in the top of the screen, and in the menu that opens, look for Event Transports. There's two different types of event transport, local and remote. Both fundamentally work the same with one exception. Remote transports can be disabled by setting your transport manager to disengaged, whereas local transports will continue to work. The suggested use case here is you could disable external transport control from, say, Lighting or Pro Tools, but still have access to the controllers on your own desk. So for that reason, I usually set up my OSC transport as a local transport. Hit the plus button and add a new transport. In the menu that opens, you'll need to start by giving it a name. In simple projects, something like OSC or OSC transport is absolutely fine. But when you end up with a bit more of an advanced setup with multiple OSC devices, you'll be glad you gave it a more descriptive name. All that's left to do is to add an OSC device to your transport, and let's pick the one that we created earlier. Probably the easiest way to verify that everything that we've done so far is definitely working is to use a Companion preset. In the Companion interface, go to the Buttons page and then open up the Presets tab. Click through Disguise OSC and then Show Control, and you should be able to drag a Transport Control button onto your Buttons page. If you have a Stream Deck connected, pushing the newly created button is enough to trigger the event, and we can check Disguise and see if it's changed the play mode. Even without Stream Deck connected, we can still use the web buttons in Companion to activate the newly created button. And there we go. We're talking to each other. Now, let's get into one of the most common uses for this setup, triggering queues. Setting up a queue needs changes to happen both in Disguise and Companion, so let's start in Companion. Select an empty button on your page and choose Create Button. Give the button a name, I'll call this Q1, and let's change its style by modifying the background colour so it stands out. Now hit the red folder under the Push Action heading on the right, choose D3OSC and then Q. The parameters you can control here are pretty simple. Just give Companion the number of the queue that you want to trigger. Now this is a good opportunity to demonstrate the OSC monitor in Disguise. Right-click where it says OSC in the top bar, and then left-click where it says Monitor next to your OSC device. If you used a preset to test your connection earlier, you should see that message in the list. Hitting your new queue button should show up in this monitor too. So Disguise is hearing your message, but you haven't yet told it which queue to activate when it hears that message. You need to come down to your timeline and right-click where you want your Q1 to start. And in the menu that opens, where it says Tags, I'm going to add a 1 and click OK. This is setting where you want your Q1 to be. Now when you push your Companion button, Disguise will jump to that queue. You might notice that if your transport is stopped when you hit the queue, Disguise jumps to that queue but doesn't start playing. This is expected and is due to a setting in the transport. Let's go back up to the transport menu and change the queue play mode setting from no change to play to end of section. When we trigger that queue, it jumps to the queue point and starts playing through to the end of the section. One of the really cool new features in the updated Companion module is access to all sorts of variables from Disguise. This means you can turn your Stream Deck into a personal display showing what's happening in your show. There's a Variables page on the left-hand side of the Companion interface. Open up the Disguise OSC section and you'll see all the variables that are available. Let me show you a practical example. Let's create a timecode display across 4 buttons, showing hours, minutes, seconds and frames. I'll create 4 new buttons. For the first one, I'll go into the Variables page and find track position _HH. That's track position in hours. If we copy the variable, then I'll paste that directly into the button name field. No need for any additional text, just the variable. I'll do the same for the other 3 buttons with track position minutes, seconds and frames. And look at that, these update in real time as the track plays. That's pretty slick. You're not limited to just timecode either. Let me show a few other useful ones. I'll create a button to display current track name. Copy the track name variable and paste it onto a new button. Another useful one is current section name. This shows you which section you're currently in. And then play mode will show you whether you're stopped playing or in another play state. These variables can be incredibly useful when keeping track of where you are in your show, especially if you're running Companion on a separate machine from your Disguise rig. A note on layer controls. Before we wrap up, I should mention that the new Companion module also includes layer control actions. You can control things like layer brightness and blend modes. These require putting a layer into OSC Sock Puppet mode in Disguise, and honestly, the Companion plugin doesn't surface all the messages you'd need to have full control of an OSC Sock Puppet layer. So it's going to be a little bit more complex and probably beyond the scope of this Getting Going video to show you all that. If there's interest in a deeper dive on layer controls in OSC Sock Puppet mode, let us know in the comments and we can do that in a future video. Alright, let's recap what we've covered today. We set up an OSC device in Disguise and configured the send IP address. We added a Disguise OSC connection in Companion. We created a transport in Disguise to handle those OSC messages. We verified the connection was working using a preset. We set up queue triggering, including how to tag queues on the disguise timeline. And then we explored using variables to create information displays on our Stream Deck. The integration between Bitfocus Companion and Disguise has really matured since we last covered it. There's so much more functionality available now, and it's become an even more powerful tool for show control.
Yeah!
Thanks for watching and supporting the channel. If you have any questions about anything we've covered today, drop them in the comments below. And if there's any other software you'd like us to cover, either updates like this or completely new tutorials, do let us know. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. From everyone here at the Hive School, we'll see you next time.